And it's hard to believe that we're celebrating this year 100 years as a gas company. I would like to take this opportunity to really dedicate this video to the employees, both past and present, because the work ethic and the loyalty that these folks back then as well as today display and make our company the company it truly is. And I mean that sincerely. It's noted throughout the state of Ohio and in many organizations throughout the country as one of the best natural gas distribution companies in America. And I say that with a lot of pride, and I say that in all honesty, too. And that's a tribute to the people that made the company.
It seems fitting that as we end what has been one of the roughest winters on record in Northwest Ohio, we prepare to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Ohio Gas Company. In an age when we simply turn up the thermostat and almost instantly feel the warmth provided by our modern gas furnace, it is hard to imagine that there once was a time when gas was a mystery to man. In ancient Persia, gas seeped from the ground and was ignited by lightning, providing fuel to the fire worshippers who lived in the area that we now call Iran. One of the most famous of these flames was found in ancient Greece when a goat herder came across a burning spring, rising from a fissure in the rock. The Greeks believed it to be divine and built a temple on the flame. The temple housed a priestess known as the Oracle of Delphi, who gave out prophecies she claimed were inspired by the flame. About 500 BC, the Chinese discovered the potential to use these fires to their advantage. They discovered that they could use the pockets of gas to boil seawater, which allowed them to extract the salt, making the water drinkable. Later, they routed the gas through bamboo pipes, sometimes as much as a day's travel away, giving us the first look at what would be the gas pipelines of today. The first commercialized natural gas appeared in Britain around 1785, when the British used natural gas produced from coal to light houses and streets. Baltimore became the first city in the United States to use coal gas to light its streets about 100 years before the Ohio Gas, Light and Coke Company was formed.
And if you look way back when it was the Ohio Gas, Light and Coke Company in 1914, we manufactured gas by burning coal. And the BTU content of that gas at the time was only 400 to 500 BTUs per cubic foot. The byproduct of the manufacturing was coke, and there was at the time the big steel industries around Gary, Indiana, and the coke was sold to the steel mills. There was a fellow by the name of Joseph Sloan. He and his brother, I understand that they came from Detroit, and they saw an opportunity in this particular area to consolidate some local coal gas manufacturing plants that some of the towns had. Mr. Sloan was able to purchase and consolidate these little local gas manufacturing businesses, and it became the Ohio Gas, Light and Coke Company. The initial office was in Napoleon. That's where Mr. Sloan had his offices back. There's a picture up here in the car of Mr. Orwig and Mr. Sloan. I don't know who the other individual is. It could be his brother. About 1980, or in that time frame, a gentleman stopped in at the Napoleon office, and he had several pictures. And one of the pictures was the 4 people in the car. He happened to be the chauffeur driving the car. He said that he was 15 years old. He brought that picture in, and he was Mr. Sloan's chauffeur. After they consolidated these little gas plants, there was a coal gas plant in Napoleon and a coal gas plant here in Bryan. They also, in I think 1925, built a line to Delta, and they supplied coal gas to the village of Delta. They just started branching out as much as they could, but you have to understand that it was difficult back in those days because all this pipe had to be put in with hand labor, manual labor to do everything. They may have had some power equipment, but it was very limited. And so most of it was just done by shovel and pick, digging those holes and laying the pipe. Then in the late 30s, the interstate pipeline system started to be constructed fully in the eastern part of the country. And the big reason why they piped up this way was the automobile companies in Detroit needed clean fuel. And we were fortunate enough to be located here in Northwest Ohio, and a pipeline went right through the service area. And so in about approximately 1939, we were able to tap in and start utilizing natural gas. Prior to that, the coal gas was used for lighting. That's how the name got its Ohio Gas Light and Coke Company. And we had cook stoves at the time, also water heating, and a little space heating. But the space heating wasn't furnaces. They were little unvented little heaters that people had stationed in various rooms. The gas rates at that time were based on the BTU content of the gas. And when natural gas came into the picture, we jumped from 500 BTUs to 1,000 per cubic foot, doubled the efficiency. Mm-hmm. There was a heck of a lot of gas found down in Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, that was well before the offshore platforms in the Gulf of Mexico came into existence. And as I say, I think the big motivation there was the heavy industry that was being developed in this country, steel mills that required the coal and the coke. All of a sudden they said, hey, this is going to be much easier. We can fire our kilns and one thing or another with natural gas. Henry Ford had to look at it and say, oh, this is a much better deal than trying to heat our buildings with coal and do our metal fabricating. And so consequently, like so many businesses, the opportunity was there. The free market came into play in a big way. And you think back of back in the mid-30s and putting in these large diameter pipes from the state of Texas and Oklahoma all the way to Michigan. I mean, what a task. And how much did it cost? I mean, obviously, if you equated the dollars spent back in those days to what it costs today, I'm afraid it wouldn't be feasible maybe to build some of those pipes at today's dollars.
From 1939 until 1945, Northwest Ohio, like the rest of the country, was focused on securing the safety of the world. Once the troops returned home in the fall of 1945, there was an entirely new outlook for most Americans, and a new name for the Ohio Gas Light and Coke Company. Fueled now with a cleaner and more efficient natural gas, sales and service of gas products became a very good moneymaker for the company.
It took a little specialization. We were in the gas business. We knew the fuel. We knew how to run the piping, and we were in just a better situation to market gas appliances. And at the time, we felt that if we did not market them, they weren't going to be sold as readily because the local appliance dealers, frankly, were not plumbers.
Well, we not only sold them, we worked on them. All the servicemen, you know, worked on appliances. And I mean, that was a big thing. You know, we would go out and take a new refrigerator or new stove, gas water heaters, and set them up in the house and light them, and furnaces. You know, that was a big job for the servicemen. You know.
I know we had when we stopped doing that, we had a lot of people that were really upset.
Used to be when they sold them, we would get green stamps. When I first started, the employees, if you were working down there, you got a green stamp and you could go trade them in Fort Wayne for stuff. So that was really unique. That didn't last a real long time because then they had dedicated salesmen that came in, and they had different salesmen. Gene was a salesman. Gene Sapp was a salesman.
Glenn Franks.
Glenn Franks and Dick Savage and Dave Timbrook.
Dave Timbrook.
Dick was in sales.
Dick was in sales
yeah,
on Napoleon.
okay.
Right,
Yes.
right.
My wife-to-be was in the Swanton office, and we eventually got married, and she said, that, by the way, there's an opening with the gas company. So it was an opening in Napoleon as a sales rep, selling gas appliances. I applied for the job, and to my good luck, I was hired.
But people were really comfortable buying the gas appliances from the gas company because they knew that the gas company would come and service them. And if there was anything wrong, all they had to do was call the gas company.
The late 50s brought a new service technician to the Ohio Gas Company, and he was one of a kind.
Someone researched this, that they were, at that time they were using bloodhounds. They could be trained to find gas leaks. They sent him to school, and the way I understood the story, that one of the training methods was they would put the odorant that's used in natural gas, they would put that in like a piece of meat or hamburger and bury it, and then train the dog to find that. He had a large doghouse on the plant property. That was still there when I came, and occasionally the stories go that he would break his chain or somehow slip his collar, do something, he would get loose, and he would go over to one of the local schoolyards and play with the kids and that kind of thing.
The 60s, 70s, and 80s brought many changes to Ohio Gas and their footprint in Northwest Ohio.
Over the many years, we've had acquisitions. Actually, they ended up selling the Delta properties to Toledo Edison years and years ago. And then in 1984, we purchased Delta and Defiance from Toledo Edison. And prior to that, it was 1960. We purchased Paulding Payne in Antwerp. That was owned by another company. And in the mid-70s, we purchased the Lyons Gas Company, which was a little privately owned company. And our motivation there was, at the time, we only had one interstate pipeline feeding or serving our area.
There was a gas shortage, and we weren't taking on any new customers. We looked at some things that we may not have normally considered for a gas supply. One of them was a gas field down in the Payne, Ohio area that we entered into an agreement with some drillers, producers, and they were developing these wells, and we had to run some gathering lines and pipe that gas into Payne, into that system. The propane business, when I started, we had actually retail propane, both in large tanks and cylinders. We had 2 delivery bobtail trucks and a cylinder truck. That was located there on the south side of Wilson Street. And we sold the retail propane business to Thermogas in 1965, but we still had the propane plant that we used through the 60s and into the 70s. Primarily it was used and meant to be used, built for peak shaving on extremely cold days when we were low on our gas supply. Into the 70s, when we had that curtailment period, there was a gas shortage from, I'm going to say 72 to 77. We actually made baseload gas through that propane plant. And during that time, from 72 to 77, we went through 25 million gallons of propane. But that was a era that required a lot of work from a lot of guys to keep those going through the night. And
many of the changes that the Ohio Gas Company has experienced over the course of the last 100 years didn't involve the physical footprint of the company, but instead the way the employees perform their daily duties.
Everything was manual then. You had just all paper trail, no computers. Technology has improved everything. We used to have to look everything up and dig through the papers. Of course, we only had 19,000 customers versus 50,000. So now I don't know how we'd ever do it on paper if we had to look up 50,000 customers detail when they call in.
Yes, the guys used to carry a book around with them, and then that was the bookkeeper's pretty much Bible. If a customer called in, they could get the reads from there, and then we would create, when we got the computer in '69, we would create paper trails with bill registers and transaction registers. So it was a lot of digging anytime a customer called in for with a question. It wasn't just pull it up on the computer, all the information's there. It was a lot of digging through papers. Girls had each town, because their books were near them. If someone called in, they had to talk to that bookkeeper. Either that or it was go haul all of their paperwork to your desk to look it up. So now when they call in the call center, anybody can answer any question from any town, but the girls used to have to maintain their own areas.
Even when we first went on the computer, they still had their own areas, and you'd say, this girl is Montpelier and this is Napoleon. And the thing of it was, is some customers were less in one area. So you had one girl taking care of 5,000 customers, another one taking care of 12 or 15. So then they decided, oh, that's dumb, because we're not going to have the books anymore and it's going to be on computer. So it just made it real easy. But it used to say, I want to talk to Brian, and they transferred to Brian. If somebody was talking on the phone, you'd have to wait because nobody else would help that person.
As the 1960s ended, the computer age was beginning for Ohio Gas.
It still wasn't 100% computerized. I mean, you still had the paper stuff that everybody had to look at, but it got better and better. Like we're a live system now that everything is updated instantaneous. Usually it was we update in the afternoon and they could see it, but it wasn't like instantaneous you'd see everything. But 69 was a real
And then it went
point.
slowly after that. I mean, we did our billing then, but it was like mid-'70s till we got the meter inventory in. So the guys used to have a little paper card, and every time they set a meter, they actually took it out of one file and put it in what town and handwrite on it where that meter was located. And I think it was about 74 when we put that on the computer, and so we were keeping track. And that was a lot of hand control for the other end too. And
81, we've got probably one of the newer computer systems that we brought. We were in the basement. We were in the basement where it would flood, and we'd have water, and we'd have to mop it up, and brought it up in 81 upstairs, and then we started enhancing everything. But at that time, we were doing outside service work in the 70s. We did outside service work for the school and for Williams County taxes and Henry County taxes, and did tax statements and did the treasurer's payments and reconciliation forms. We worked a lot of overtime.
And we took in election board work. We kept election update for Williams County and Henry County. And we actually counted ballots in our basement on our computer, and that went on for quite a few years, even after we moved upstairs till they got their own computer system in the courthouse to count ballots. So. Because the files they weren't stored on the computer. We had great big disk packs. So big heavy disk packs. And we had 3 of them for our main billing. We would haul our packs over to Citizens, use their computer, and then bring our packs back, and we would be updated. We could run our reports, and then they would do the same if their computer went down.
For over 60 years, reading gas meters has been a man's job, but that was about to change.
Well, I got a call from John Webster, and he was one of the vice presidents here in the gas company, and he knew I liked being outside, and he knew I was currently not working, and so he called and asked if I would try it, and I came in for an interview on a Thursday, and I came to work the next Monday, and it was quite the shock, I think, to everybody at the company, because I was working for the service department, which was all men, and they were quite shocked when I walked in, and here was a woman coming in to do a job, and after a few weeks, they all accepted me, and they knew I was there to do my job, and I did it as best as I could, and the rest is history. I did it for almost 14 years. After I was hired, they hired another one a few months later, Kathy Kemmerer, and then Teresa Miller, and then Shelley Bell, and yeah, we had a lot of female meter readers, so we were good.
Through the years, the ladies have seen numerous changes, but the one thing that has stayed the same is that the employees at Ohio Gas have always been very close.
We were always like a big family here. Everybody did everything together. Birth of a child, a graduation, a wedding, a death in the family. I mean, everybody just treated like a family and pitched right in. If you needed something, they were always there for you. It's always been like that. I mean, we're closer probably to the people here than we are to some of our family members, because Diana and I have worked together for well over 40 years. I knew Cindy in school. We were from the same town, and I knew her since we were about 5, 6 years old. And it's a friendship you'll never have another one like it as you do from here. Nancy and I have become friends since she was a meter reader, and you just are just like family. Yes, we have our first male customer service representative. We've never had a man before.
Yeah.
It's doing wonderful. He's fit right in with the women. He's the youngest one in our department, but he fits in good and puts up with all of us and gives back as good as he gets. I mean, he really does.
Women have been very important, I mean, from day one, and you know, they have kept the company going behind the scenes, where the servicemen and the engineers are, you know, up front. That's what, you know, the public see, but you know, they don't see all the women back here that are doing all of the groundwork for the company. It could not run without all of these women.
Bill Glore started with Ohio Gas in 1961, and before he retired in 2006, he saw many changes as well.
There were quite a few physical differences at that time from what there are today. The plant building where we worked was the old gas manufactured plant. That's why it's referred to as the plant. And the downtown office was the office. There was two groups of us, basically. But that plant building housed the service department and the meter shop and dispatching and engineering. And then there was a separate building for the warehouse that faced Wilson Street, which is, none of those buildings are there anymore.
Probably one of the biggest things that I've noticed as far as the operation of the company is concerned is the technology that has come into play. We now have automatic devices on our meters. We have 2 meter readers, full-time meter readers, and they just drive through the communities with a truck, and it automatically picks up the reads off the meters. And we have 100% of our meters, both residential, commercial, and industrial, equipped with the automatic reading device now. Natural gas, compressed natural gas vehicles, particularly in the fleet area where companies have trucks or transit vehicles, are trending towards compressed natural gas. 2 reasons for that, of course, is the escalation of the gasoline and the diesel prices, but also there's far less pollutants with the burning of natural gas. We have waste haulers in Defiance, Whirler Corporation, Archibald Refuse are converting their trucks over to compressed natural gas. We have another company in Defiance that has just started.
As they approach their 100th year, the Ohio Gas Company is the 5th largest distributor of natural gas in the state of Ohio.
It's always been the philosophy of our owners, as far as I can go back at least, that we have 3 responsibilities, and first is to our customers, second to our employees, and lastly to the shareholders or owners of the company. We are a monopoly in the respect that we're the only gas company here. But we take that responsibility very seriously. We have not had a general rate increase since 1985.
During the first 36 years of operation, Ohio Gas was guided by 8 different presidents. But since 1950, only 3 have held that position.
Well, I can only personally go back as far as a gentleman by the name of C.B. Melton, and he came out of New York. I have a very fond memory of when C.B. Melton retired and James Tuttle became president. My girlfriend at the time, my wife now, was working for the company, and they had a big Christmas party out at the Moose here in Bryan. So she invited me to the Christmas party, and that was when C.B. Melton retired and Jim Tuttle took the reins. That, of course, was about a year and a half before I came to work for the company. James Tuttle did a wonderful job in operating the company, went through a lot of rather trying times with the gas shortages of the 1970 period, where we weren't able to connect any new customers for a period of 5 or 6 years. So there was virtually no growth. Jim worked actively. He was active in the business until he was over 80 years old.
Every company needs a solid leadership team, and Ohio Gas has one.
Our gas supply specialist, and I call him a specialist because he is, and that's Bob Iyer, and Bob has done a wonderful job in contracting for gas supply, and he works on a daily basis trying to find the best price on that particular commodity because it is deregulated out there. We don't buy just from one source. We buy from multiple companies. Kim Watkins is Secretary-Treasurer of the company. Chuck Turnwald, Chuck, he's our chief bean counter. He does the all of our general accounting. He's in charge of our general accounting. Cynthia Reed is head of IT and also HR. Doug Saul, he's our vice president, chief engineer of the company, and Doug has been instrumental in how he's performed with his folks. He actually is responsible for the largest number of people, other than myself, under a direct report. All of the operations fall under his category. I try to convey to all of our people that whether or not they're a meter reader or whether or not they're an officer of the company, we all have our responsibilities, and the company cannot run without everyone doing their part. And I think that's a strong philosophy that was built into this company from day one. We wouldn't be here without our customers. We certainly wouldn't be a success without our employees, and they're truly the backbone of our company.